Jonathan Waxman is an American chef originally born in Oakland, California. One of the pioneers of California cuisine, he first graduated from the University of Nevada at Reno to pursue a career in jazz music and eventually joined the rock band Lynx. After leaving the band and traveling to France, however, he began studying at the prestigious La Varenne School of Cooking. He then became a chef at Chez Panisse under the ownership of celebrity Alice Waters. In 1979, he opened Michael's Restaurant near Santa Monica Beach with Michael McCarty, attracting diners from across the nation. He is credited with being one of the first chefs to bring California French fusion to the New York palate after he opened Jam's Restaurant in 1984. An instant success, Mr. Waxman made headlines and became known as one of the many rock star chefs of the 1980s. Among other restaurants created by Jonathan Waxman are Bud's, Jams of London, and Table 29. Currently, he is the chef owner of Barbuto and Jams in New York, Cucina in Atlanta, and Adele's, named for his mother, in Nashville, Tennessee. Can you put it down?
He is the author of 2 cookbooks, Italian My Way and A Great American Cook, and has made celebrity appearances on both Top Chef Masters and his own cooking show, A Recipe for Deception. He currently lives in New York with his wife and 3 children. Please welcome to the circle our dad, Jonathan Waxman.
Hi, guys. How are we doing? How was dinner? How was dinner? It was great, right? Good. We have some snacks out there afterwards, in case you're still feeling peckish. Anyway, it's the harvest season, and it's my favorite time of year. And what we thought we'd talk about today is succotash. Anybody know what succotash means? Come on, guys. Help me out here. Anybody? Raise your hand if you know. Yes, sir. Okay, forget about it. All right, so succotash is a Native American word, and it means beans. And there's that famous cartoon about suffering succotash. But beans were one of the native vegetables that were grown in this northern and southern hemisphere. A lot of these beans actually came from Peru, strangely enough. But a number of other things about succotash is that it's really free form. You can do whatever you want. And I think I'm going to ask Jed, who's the director of culinary here at the school, come out and help me a little bit. And Jed is going to, and actually, Julie, are you going to come out too?
Julie.
And Ed, you might as well. And Ed too. So, you know, it always takes a village to create a meal. And we're going to talk a lot about that today, or tonight, excuse me. So I'm going to ask Julie to start with a corn. And at home, who likes corn? We all do, right? When I was a little kid, my mother used to poach corn in boiling water with salt, and then I would take a stick of butter on one corn cob. And then I'd ask for another corn cob, another stick of butter. So I don't know if it was the butter or the corn I like more, but it's actually a compelling thing. So the easiest way to cook corn is to stick the corn in the oven on a sheet tray and cook it for 45 minutes. Guess what happens? So when you cook it, we should have actually done that tonight. What happens is, this is called silk, by the way, this stuff on top. And there's lots of corn out in the fields right now. When you peel it after it's cooked, the silk just melts away. Now I just made a mess. Chefs love making messes. So my wife Sally is here, and she'll probably raise her hand and start yelling at me in a second. But we have a pact this time of year. She goes to farmers market and shops. I cook and she cleans up because I don't know how to clean up, according to her, at all. And it's just one of those things that happen. Anyway, so to cut corn, you put a towel down and you take some. We have some water here, yes?
Yes.
And you put some water on top of the towel. Oh, and this is the right pH, I've been told. This is 7. So if you're taking chemistry this year, if the water is not at the right pH, you're in trouble, okay? And you take the you take the corn, and everybody holds a knife incorrectly. Everybody, correct? Everybody. Well, not people like Jed and myself, but everybody else does. Jed, you want to make sure that's on? So the way to hold a knife actually should balance right about here. Okay, see that? It's a bad knife, actually. And 3 fingers here, thumb here, index finger here. Right? Okay, you got it, guys? Hand, I'm right-handed, so my left hand forms like a little crab. Thumb behind the fingers. Actually, I'll tell you a story. I was at a place called Domaine Chandon in 1977, and the chef was showing me how I was doing. He says, "You're cutting your vegetables all wrong." So I had my hand here, right? And he had a knife that was much longer than this, and he went like this, and he cut my thumb in half. So I'm sitting here looking at him like bleeding, and I had to put my thumb back like this, and in those days, everything was a stick shift, right? So I had to get in my little Fiat convertible and drive to the hospital, holding my thumb and trying to drive the stick shift, and cursing him the entire time. Anyway, so Julie, can you cut a couple of onions and
Yes,
slice
of
them
course.
for me, please? And we'll start with the onions. Everything starts with onions, by the way. Everything starts with onions. Onions are the magic ingredient. Onions just make the world happy. Anyway, so the corn, you don't want to cut too deep in the corn, and you always want to go down like this. And you don't want to make any noise when you do it. You want to do it as quietly as possible. Why? I have no idea. But you don't want to go too deep into the cob because the cob is bitter, okay? But look what happens as I cut. The wet towel actually captures all the corn, and they don't go spinning off into space. Little tip, all right? So Jed, can you cut some corn for me, please? And, all right, so Julie, if you could hand me those onions, I'm going to show everybody how to cut an onion. It sounds like it should be easy, but
Here you go.
life is, simple things are always somewhat hard. Anyway, remember I told you hold the knife, 3 fingers here, thumb here, index finger here, hand like this. Oh, and Jed, could you hold my elbow for a second? Okay, so everybody cuts at home like this, right? Right? You all do it. Your parents do it, your aunts and uncles. It's wrong, right? Why is it wrong, Jed? It's not the right way to do it. So, here's how we do it. So when you see where my thumb is, my fingers, I'm holding the top of the, and the nice thing about an onion is a kind of a precise thing, and Ed, push my elbow. Push my elbow. Oh, see that? That feels good. Feels good, right? So, there's another way to do it. You could actually do it backwards, right? But the elbow goes back. It does. It does. Or you can go forwards. Forwards or backwards. And you could actually talk and cut at the same time, unlike some presidents we used to have. That's a joke. And if you've been watching Ken Burns' Vietnam War, there was one president who talked about chewing gum and walking at the same time. Anyway, I shouldn't say that. No, I promised myself no presidential jokes today. We already have one. Yeah, please. Okay. Alexander, please stand up. I know that you almost flunked French, but we're going to... Could you, Alexander, do you remember what the word sauté means? All right, so I'll remind you. Alexander, can you jump up in the air, please, about a foot? Just jump, right in place. Voilà, sauté. Okay, so sauté actually means to jump. So what does that mean? In the pan, I want the onions to literally jump. And we'll add butter later, okay? Jed loves butter as well as I do. I actually just did this demonstration about 3 weeks ago with Venus Williams. And she said she was a vegan, right? So I said, what's the best thing about being a vegan? She goes, butter. I said, darling, butter and veganism, they don't compute. I'm sorry. That doesn't work that way. Okay, so the onions, isn't that beautiful? So we're going to start the other pan. And Jed, if you could man this pan for me.
I'd be happy to.
And these guys are beautiful squash from the market. Can you pick that thing up for a second? Yeah, pick the Hubbard up. All right. Isn't this beautiful? I can actually take this home and talk to it. Hubbard squash is the most beautiful squash in the planet, and actually it's the most delicious one too. The onions are just about perfect. And then, do you have some corn for me, my dear?
I do.
We do.
I'm going to add some corn right here. And Julie, why don't you give me some more corn, please? All right? So she's going to bring, that's enough. You're good right now.
Thank you so much.
Chefs are slightly impatient. Just slightly. We're generally pretty patient, but all right. So while I'm doing this, Jed is going to cut up some tomatoes for me.
Very good.
And do you cut them on the equator? Are you going to cut them on the equator, Jed? Or are we going to cut them? Which way do you cut them? So I cut them on the equator. Which way do you go?
Whichever way I'm told, Chef.
No, which way do you like doing it,
I
though?
like to go through the stem myself.
So I like the opposite.
Okay.
He's a contrarian.
I could be referred to as that.
And I could tell that he's never stubborn at all. All right, so what's happening here in the pan? Did you see the onions starting to get brown? What is that called? Anybody? Caramelization. What does caramelization mean? It means that the onions exude a liquid that has lots of what in it? Sugar. The sugar, when it hits heat, does what? Caramelizes. Okay? Now, who doesn't love caramel, right? We all love it, right? Caramel popcorn might be the greatest thing in the world, right?
Yes.
Maybe. Except for there's a couple other things. Chocolate chip cookies are kind of high on my list.
Caramel on your ice cream.
There you go. Caramel ice cream is good.
Yes.
So the caramelization of the onions, now it's meeting the corn. Now, the funny thing about corn these days is, you have an ear over there for me? Can I borrow it for 1 second? So, back before about 1890, 1900, corn was pretty starchy. And there was two kinds of corn. There was corn for pigs and for humans. I'm sorry, that's not even a joke yet. So the corn was pretty starchy. It was very nutritious, but wasn't that good. In the last 30, 40 years, corn is sweet, right? To me, it's almost too sweet. There's almost too much sugar that's happened. The hybridization that's happened over the last few years, I think it's gone a little bit too far. But anyway, that's the drill on that. I'm going to add the tomatoes now. These are cherry tomatoes.
Local cherry tomatoes.
Local cherry tomatoes. And the best thing about local cherry tomatoes, food does talk to you, by the way. So what it's saying to me right now is stir me, stir me. And while I'm doing that, Julie, if you could slice up some squash for me.
Sure.
And Jed, in that pan that's starting to get hot,
Yes.
we're going to cook some squash. So I'm going to turn off the corn, because that's looking good to me. Squash is very funny. How do you tell if it's good squash? Is it soft? No, you want it rock hard, like a baseball. No, Joe, I know you've got beautiful mise en place, but we're not going to use it. So,
Sorry, Ed.
to cut the squash up, again, I'm holding let's get rid of this guy. Don't go anywhere. Remember the elbow? Remember the no noise? Not bad, right? All right, so Ed, you can add some salt for me. And this is another type of squash. Jed, do you remember what the name of this one is?
Marvin?
Marvin.
I don't know. I really don't.
Marvin, okay.
It's a local squash.
It's a local squash. I'm going to give him some eyes. And shall I give him a nose, too?
Nose would be good.
A nose, a little nose. There we go. And then here we go. We get a little smile for him. Okay, there's Marvin.
You have a real calling.
There you go. There's Marvin. But I'm sorry, Marvin, but it's your time. I just recently lost, how much weight did I lose, guys?
40 pounds.
40 pounds? 50? I went vegan, sort of. And there is a certain sensibility about going plant-based these days. And how many people out there are vegan? Anybody raise your hand? Anybody? It's a vegan section over here.
Right? These are two of our biggest vegans. Right
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't say we can keep big vegans, but enthusiastic vegans, right? All right. So these peppers, are these spicy, Jen?
No, they are not.
These are sweet peppers. And the easiest way to cut a pepper is just to ignore the seeds inside and cut around it. And again, these guys, I'm going to julienne them. Anybody? Alexander, you don't remember what julienne means. Julienne means, so it's funny how, I went to cooking school in Paris before Jed was born. And
Are you sure?
probably not. And I had an instructor who had worked in a restaurant called Prunier in the 1930s. And he called me Toto. Remember Dorothy's dog in Wizards of Oz? And I never understood why he called me Toto. And to this day, I've never understood that. Anyway, so with the squash, Jed, can you add some pepper to that?
I'd be happy to, Chef.
So we're going to add some black pepper to this. And then I think did you see the caramelization again, guys?
Beautiful.
So what happens when caramelization? Flavor. If you go to a restaurant and they don't cook the zucchini or the squash properly, it just really doesn't have a great flavor.
Sure.
So you go back to the kitchen, you tell the chef, I saw this guy at my school, and he said, you're not doing it right. Now, cooking is about building flavor, just like life. Right? And I think it's, can you put some olive oil in there?
I'd be more than happy to, Chef.
All right, so a little more olive oil, and this time we're going to have Venus Williams' favorite ingredient.
La mantequilla.
And then, remember our little beans? So these are pre-cooked beans. I'm going to add the beans in here. And some more beans. And you notice I'm cooking these things in kind of a strange order, but it all makes sense when in the wash here. All right, so Jed's already made some beautiful peppers here, so I'm gonna add some peppers right in here. Can you add some more there, Jeff?
I'd be happy to, Chef.
Okay. It smells good, doesn't it, guys? All right, so Julie has this beautiful squash over here. I can't get enough squash, so we're gonna add some more squash to this.
Now, you know we had succotash for dinner tonight.
We do.
Does anybody remember that?
You got succotash to do tonight? Did you
Nobody
guys?
remembers it.
Oh, you did do it. All right. So I'm going to turn the burner back on for this dish, and I'm going to add the most important ingredient of all, water. So water does something interesting to the vegetables. It kind of leaches out all that caramelization, all that liquid that the vegetables have exuded while they're cooking. And it's something really, this is where the magic happens. And if you want to, you can do chicken stock, or a lot of times I'll use vinegar to, this is actually called deglazing. Anybody know what deglazing means? Okay, so deglazing is the process of taking all that caramelization which sticks to the bottom of the pan. So you know that stuff when you, sometimes at home you see that brown stuff that comes after you roast a chicken or cook a steak? That caramelization that's stuck at the bottom of the pan, that's where all the great flavor is. And so we're taking up all that caramelization and building flavors inside the succotash. And now, oh, let's do this. Julie, can you come over here and help me pick some herbs?
Sure.
Anybody know what these herbs are right here? Sage. Who said that?
Very good.
Very good. All right, sage is actually called the devil herb.
Why?
Too much is a bad thing, right? Right?
That's true.
So we're going to pick some thyme out. So Julie's going to pick some thyme for me. We're going to just pull this off. And the best way to do thyme is to take it up like this and just pull it off right inside the dish. Sometimes I like sticking a piece of thyme in my pocket. If I get home at night and all of a sudden my pocket smells really good.
Like more?
Yeah, let's do a whole bunch. Weird. Chefs are weird. Sorry.
No,
Not
it's
so you
true.
always have time on hand?
Always have thyme on hand, Jed. Lavender is actually the best herb to put in your pocket. Then when you wash your pants afterwards, it's a really good thing. All right, so I think we've got enough thyme. Let's put some parsley in. And that devil sage, we're gonna julienne him again. And we're gonna do fine julienne, so I'm gonna sort of stack these guys up. And remember my thumb, my finger thing? And
The cornstalks, Jed.
yeah, there you go. Just the right amount of sage. And as I'm doing that, I'm crushing it in my fingers. Smells pretty good, doesn't it, Jed? All right, so Julie's going to chop some parsley.
Caramelization.
And I like butter, Jed. Did I tell you that?
Nice. Very good. Sorry, Liam. Sorry, Maisie.
We're going to pretend it's vegan, okay?
We can.
All right, so scallions. Are these local, Jed?
They are not.
They're not local. These are from Boston, these scallions.
Those are
Is
from
it okay
Boston.
right here?
That was a joke.
Go right in.
Yes, right. All the parsley in there, please. Parsley adds an amazing thing to any food. It creates freshness. It's incredibly nutritious, but it makes anything come alive. When I was in cooking school, I was told never to stir with a pair of tongs.
From the French chef.
All right, so the same thing is happening with the beans. they're starting to caramelize a little bit, okay? And I'll show you what Venus Williams couldn't do. And I was kind of surprised. She couldn't do this. Now, I tried with her like for 10, 15 minutes, and she finally just threw her hands to me and said, when are we going to eat? Isn't that beautiful?
That is beautiful.
So this is how we're building flavors. So we have the beans, the peppers, some more squash, well, I don't know what else is in there. Caramelized onions, the corn, more squash, peppers, herbs, salt and pepper. And lastly, we're going to put in some scallions. Now, scallions are funny. If you put them in too early, they get slimy. Remember the elbow thing? If you watch my hand is kind of compressing the scallions and holding them together. And the scallions go in right now. I think that's enough, Jed.
Okay.
We'll get rid of those for me.
Very good.
Do you mind?
Not at all, Chef.
You notice I didn't use the green parts? That's for the pig. The compost.
Put them in the stock.
All right.
That looks marvelous.
All right, so remember that special ingredient I had before? The pan needs a little bit more water. And this pan needs some water too. So we're actually creating a vegetable stock. And that's sort of helping the whole process go here. And it's the funny thing about the harvest season, this year, because it's been so warm, tomatoes are very late, corn is late, squash is late. So you're getting a convergence. You're getting kind of this, the meeting of these guys, native corn, white pumpkins, Hubbard squash. What else we got here?
Delicata.
Butternut. And why is the skin hard on butternut squash? Anybody? Keep it from predators, so they don't attack the inside. Insects and humans, predators. And there's something else in these guys, lectins. Anybody know about lectins? Any professors here? We're going to talk about lectins sometime. All right, so I'm going to ask Julie if she can slice some tomatoes very precisely like this. Do that for me?
That's
Thank you.
precise.
Now, this is when the marriage happens. Beans and the corn come together. Now, what was the precise timing of that? Well, there is no precise timing. The most important part of the puzzle, Chef, is to taste it.
The tasting.
Looks pretty good, doesn't it, guys? All right, Jed, you go first.
Thank you, Chef. More butter.
More salt, more pepper. Now, one thing that we didn't have today was okra. I love okra and succotash. Who likes okra? Anybody? It's the best, right? Okay, so you about ready on those tomatoes?
I am.
You want to bring them over to me?
Grab a bowl.
And I'm going to present this, and we're going to do some Q&A. How about that? You guys ready? No? Thank you. Okay. And look what's happening too. See how it's thickening up? That is a measure that succotash is getting kind of perfect.
That looks delicious.
And what happens, there's a catalyst that happens, that occurs inside this dish It's something to do with the corn juices and the zucchini and the peppers all coming together with that butter and creates that beautiful sauce. And, okay, one more time. Oh, Julie, you taste.
Come on, Jules.
Thanks so much.
Here you go.
Oh, I got
Oh, you got your own spoon. There we
so
go.
much. This looks good.
And this is the thing. Everybody should taste because no one palate is perfect, right? We all have to taste. What do you think?
Really hot.
Really hot. Is that good hot or bad hot?
That's great.
Great hot.
It's fantastic. Thank you. It's delicious.
All right. That looks pretty good, right, guys? So I'm going to get rid of this pan over here. And then let's start decorating, shall we? Julie, you want to start putting your tomatoes around? And decoration is the best part of the thing here. I'm going to put some of these guys on top, shall we?
Okay, sure.
And then I think we need some parsley
There you go.
around the outside. That one's a little wilted.
Do you want some whole tomatoes?
No, I think that looks good. Some parsley here. I think we're actually good. I think we look good. And there you go, guys. Rotten succotash. Okay, here we go.
So, now it's time for our Q&A session. Does anybody have any questions?
Don't be shy. Yes, sir. What's your favorite food? Next question. What form are you in now? Yeah, I know. Okay. Next question. Yes, ma'am. What's that? So I started off as a trombone player. And all I wanted to do was play trombone. Until about 1973 or 74, my father goes, "It's time to get a real job." I said, "What is that?" And he goes, "Well, you know, a job, you know, like where you get a paycheck." So I said, "Okay." So he handed me a telephone number. And I said, "Okay, what am I supposed to do with this?" He goes, "Call the guy up." So I called the guy up. And I said, "Okay, it's a sales job, right?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "What is it, insurance?" He goes, "No, not insurance." So he just come see me. So I went to see him. His name was Jerry Gamez. And he did sell something. He sold Ferraris. So I started selling Ferraris when I was 24 years old. What does Ferraris have to do with anything remotely with cooking? Well, the owner of the Ferrari dealership's wife was a foodie. I didn't even know what foodies were in those days, but she was a foodie. And she convinced me and the head, this is a true story, the head Ferrari mechanic to go take cooking class. So I took cooking class from a woman named Mary Risley in San Francisco at the Tante Cooking School, and I loved it. It took 6 weeks, and I fell in love. And I started going to the library and reading any cookbook I could. And I came across this book, The Juilliard Guide to Paris, by a couple of guys named Henri Go and Christian Millot. I read the book, and I fell in love with the idea of going to Paris. Unbeknownst to me, Mary had signed me up for a cooking school in Paris. So we had lunch one day. She goes, "If you can get $6,000, this is 1974, it's a lot of money in those days, you have a place at La Varenne Cooking School in Paris." So when on my birthday in 1976, November 15th, I went to Paris and started studying cooking. Anyway, long story, long answer to your question, but anyway. Next question. Yes? You have to pay a lot of money for that. No, we'll figure it out. Any other questions, guys? Yes, sir. What? That's a loaded question. So the question was, have I met Gordon Ramsay? I guess I'm at that sort of stature in my life where certain people like Gordon Ramsay they get intimidated around me. I don't know why. So he's slightly obsequious when he sees me, but he's actually a very pleasant, sweet guy. That whole TV shtick, that's TV. If you're watching a show now, have anybody seen the show lately with Aaron Sanchez on it? Aaron's my Mexican son, so make sure you applaud for him. Next question. Yes, ma'am. It's funny. I cook Thanksgiving at our friend's house in New Jersey, and my wife says I always undercook the turkey. And I always try to do a natural pumpkin pie with Hubbard Squash, and she said, no, it's Libby's out of the can. But yes, I do. Last year we did on a rotisserie, we did turkeys on a rotisserie. It turned out pretty good. But not all of them. Yes. Other questions? Yes. I'm sorry. Question? Oh, I'm sorry.
Do you consider Guy from the area to be a culinary specialist?
So, truth be told, I just filmed 5 shows with Guy. It's a new show coming out on Food Network in November, I think. I'm actually going back to film some more shows. Behind that blonde, weird hairdo and the strange bravado and all that, shoot first and ask questions later. He's actually a very sensitive, really wonderful, smart, very good cook who really cares about his guests. And he's very self-deprecating. And in fact, to the point where when I'm on the show, it's all about me, not about him. So he's a pretty cool dude. Next question? Yes? Well, it's a question of, do you want the engine to go full blast or you want to kind of putter along? Okay? Next question.
Oh, I have a follow-up on that one.
Yes.
Does cutting the onions correctly lessen the effects on your eyes?
Very good question. Absolutely. But everybody has, let's face it, at home you have the dullest knives on the planet. I mean, if you wanted to kill somebody with a knife, you'd just have to go 25 times. So a sharp knife is the key to life, and that really helps. Next question? Question?
There's one of
Yes,
Student
sir.
in the back.
So, if anybody knows anything about me, Bobby worked for me for 5 years.
Yeah.
But coming out, this is actually a true story, coming out this week, there is a Beat Bobby Flay that I'm on. I can't tell you the result. Next question, yes?
What's your favorite thing to cook?
Well, that's kind of a loaded question. It's kind of like, what's my favorite child? So it's really what, like I love succotash right now because it's in season, but I don't really have favorites per se. Whatever I'm cooking is my favorite at that moment. I know it's a cop-out, but that's what it is. Next question? Yes, sir. What?
Do you know what a chopped cheese is?
A chopped cheese?
Yeah, it's like a sandwich on Harlem.
Chopped cheese. No, I don't. We'll talk later. Next question.
There's one up top on the balcony.
Up top? I'm sorry, where?
In the middle.
Oh,
on the
I'm sorry.
What's your middle name?
Next question. Yes, ma'am. That's a good question.
I'm just going to repeat that in case anyone didn't hear. It was, describe the process of beginning a restaurant?
I have a friend of mine who's an old restaurateur. His name is Mark Miller. He's famous back in the 80s, but he's retired now. So the two best days in a restaurateur's career is the day you open and the day you close. You know, it's funny. You know, as I said, I didn't start off to be a chef or a cook or a restaurateur. It sort of happened really more by osmosis, or the Yiddish word chutzpah comes to mind. But restaurants are unlike any other business. They really come out of a question of hospitality. Anybody know what the word restaurant means, by the way? Anybody? The word restaurant means to restore your spirit. So the funny thing about restaurants is that you go to restaurants to get fed, obviously, and feed your body. But what you're really doing is you're breaking bread with your friends, family, business people, whomever you're dining with, and you expect the restaurant to provide an atmosphere that your cares go away, both from a culinary point of view and a spiritual point of view. And I think that's kind of my philosophy about restaurants. Next question, sorry.
We got 2 more questions.
2 more questions, yes. Yes, ma'am.
What's your favorite item to cook on anything?
None. Yes. What's that? So, you know, this whole superlative about best is always very subjective, right? I could tell you places I've been to that I like, but I haven't been to all the cities of the world or all the places in the world. But I will say that if, in my book, the cuisine that I'm most impressed with always is from China. And I think it's just a question of history. You know, it's an evolved cuisine that happened over thousands of years. And I think that's really, to me, something that I really want to spend more time studying. I want to go to China. I want to go. Years ago, I set up some kitchens in Taiwan for American Airlines, and I didn't know what to expect. And I walked in these places, and number one, I never saw a cleaner kitchen in my life. I never saw happier cooks in my life. I never saw technicians like that. And they were the most generous people on the planet, and they could cook like crazy. Anyway, next question.
Last one.
Last one. Yes, sir. Next question. Next question. Last question. Yes, ma'am. Oh, I love that. Okay, thank you very much for that.
Question was, what is the biggest challenge you've overcome in your career?
Besides economics, self-doubt. Self-doubt is the hardest thing. I think with any career, especially, you know, if you subject yourself to ridicule like this, you're open to any kind of pot shots. But I think that you know, there's times in my life that I really, you know, doubted everything about what I did. I always thought that there were better cooks out there were better restaurateurs. I thought there were people out there that really did an amazing job, and I felt humbled by their existence, but also intimidated. So that whole thing about being, you know, your ego, your self-worth, your desire to do well can get crushed by yourself. So how do you get out of that? It's a tough thing, I think. But when people start coming in the door and the restaurant fills up and the noise starts, the plates start clacking together, glasses start clinking, people start raising toast, and the din of the restaurant rises up, then my spirits rise too. Anyway, thank you all.